Rajesh Subramanyam. He is an economist, writer and a traveller. Currently, the MD and principal of the B.M Group of Schools, Bangalore. A visit to Wagah made him embark on a mission for an unguarded India-Pak border. He envisions an India coexisting peacefully with its brother nation. I invite you, sir, onto the dais to enlighten us with your words.
Alright, now as it was stated, I am from a school and a group of education institutions in Bangalore. And basically we had been to Wagah, Amritsar with family a couple of years ago. And I hope you know that there is something called beating the retreat ceremony, which happens every evening. And we went there and sat through it. I'll just tell you what it is later. But that made me think again, that is it real patriotism or is it hatred that we have? And with this, I'm working on a book which speaks over the years the evolution of our country, our great country called India, and the futility of having hostile neighbors. So I'm writing this book which should be through in about 3 to 4 months. And the other passion that I have is motorcycling. So I plan to ride with this book along with my son who is here. Could I ask him to stand up please, Aditya? Along with my son from Kanyakumari to Wagah border, and maybe present this book at the Beating the Retreat ceremony just to express what I have in mind. And I don't know, I'm talking about patriotism, I'm talking about hostility. I'm also, obviously, when we talk about patriotism, hostility and border conflict, there will be also a religious aspect which comes through. So let me make it very, very clear that I'm not for or I'm not against any religion. I'm a born Hindu, but I'm not a staunch follower of any religion. I deeply respect all religions. So in the course of my presentation, please don't mistake that I am for or against any religion. Alright, now, what is the name of our country? India. Our country is India. But the official name is Bharat. Probably, I don't know, one of the very few countries to have 2 names. And we have a third name. We praise our country saying Jai Hind. So there we call it Hindustan also. So what I'm trying to convey to you is that ours is a very, very evolved nation. And if you know the origin of the word, official name is Bharat, but the origin of the word India, any idea? Go back, Indus Valley, back to that. Sindhu is the original word, Sindhu, and then it became Indu. It later on became Indus, and that became India. And similarly, from the same river Sindhu only, the word Hindu has also come. The word Hindu has come from the same word Hindu, Sindhu, river Sindhu, which probably the invaders or whoever you may call it, were not able to pronounce, and they started calling it Hindu, it became Hindu. So Hinduism, practically, even if you go back to the Vedic times, the Vedas never used the word Hindu. It was given to them by the invaders who could not pronounce the name of the river Sindhu. So that's what Hinduism is. So strictly speaking, it is not any dogmatic religion or something. I mean, it is just a way of life which was followed by the people living on the banks of the river Sindhu, and obviously it has a rich contribution over the centuries. But unfortunately, what I note is that religion is being used to divide our country. It has been always used to divide our country, and that is keeping us away from lot of other beautiful things which can happen as a developing nation, like Mr. Sanjay also was mentioning. There are so many nice things which can happen, but religion is keeping us away from many of these. And I don't know if you know Herbert Spencer, the famous sociologist, said, the fear of the dead created a religion, and the fear of the living created the state. We are scared of people living, so we have a government and we have a police and we have a military. We are scared of the dead people who will come back as ghosts, so we follow some religion just to see that dead people don't trouble us and we go to heaven after death. As simple as that, what we believe in. But what pains is that this same religion is being used as a stumbling block for most of our development. Now, if I could ask you a question, how old is India? Where will you trace the origin of the country called India? Anybody? There is no starting point. There is no starting point, but you can take any starting point. What are the landmark stages in history which you can take as the starting point for India? The earliest one you go back, okay, the Indus Valley civilization could be one. Now here again, you see the very strange thing is you have the 4 river valley civilizations, no? The Indus Valley, the Chinese, the Mesopotamian, and the Egyptian. What strikes you here when you talk about these 4 civilizations? Indus Valley, Mesopotamian, Egyptian, and Chinese. Anything comes to your mind? Yes, sir.
Which one do you mean? India or Bharat?
Sorry?
Which one do you mean? India or Bharat?
No. When I say these 4 civilizations, the Indus Valley, the Egyptian, the Chinese, and the Mesopotamian.
All originated at the river banks?
They are originated at river banks, but if you note, the other 3 civilizations are named after countries. And this one great civilization is named after a river. Because the civilization today is not present in one single country. Part of it is in Pakistan and part of it is in India. And we call it after the river valley. So that could be one starting point in this valley. You could maybe think of the Vedic age or the coming of the Aryans as the second starting point. Any other starting points? The coming of the Europeans, the Arab conquest of Sindh. The Arab conquest of Sindh could be a starting point. The coming of the Europeans could be a starting point. Now see, if you look at the history of India, we have always been a country which has been patronized or visited by people from diverse cultures and diverse religions. And instead of being proud of that, we are fighting to death. Now, strictly speaking, even the Hindus are not original inhabitants of India. The Aryans came from Central Asia. Then you had the Arabs who came here and Islam came as a religion. Then you had the Europeans who came here, but even before that, I don't know, much before that, even just after Christ's crucifixion, you had St. Thomas who came to Kerala and Christianity started. So, just to say that this country belongs to somebody and does not belong to somebody is only how short-sighted you want to be. How short-sighted you want to be. You want to look back only 100 years, then the Christians are aliens. You want to look back 300 years, the Muslims are aliens. You want to look back 5,000 years, the Hindus are aliens. So instead of appreciating the rituals that we have been using it as a point to fight. And that's what is paining me. Now, coming back to the starting point, okay, the Aryans, the coming of the Arab conquest of Sindh, the coming of the Europeans, but even there was no single country called India. It was only a feeling that we got. We were ruled by kingdoms. And we needed the cruel shock of a foreign invasion to let us know that we have a national identity. Maybe you can think of 1857, the first war, or Sepoy Mutiny, whatever it's called, could be a starting point for India. The year 1885, with the establishment of the Indian National Congress, could be a starting point for India. The year 1947, when we officially became a country, could be a starting point for India. The year 1950, when our constitution came into force, could also be a starting point for India. Now, why I am telling this is, we are a richly assimilated country. Richly assimilated country, but unfortunately, even during the time of the later independence movement, there were a lot of things which have resulted in the hostility that we have today. Now, if you look back at the independence movement, the latest, I'm sure most of you are students of technology and I suppose agriculture also. So you would have done social studies up to class 10 at least. Social studies is divided into history, geography and civics. What is history and what is civics? Geography we know, it's about maps and all these things. What is history and what is civics? No, point to note is that anything which happened before 1947 is history. Anything which happened after 1947 is civics. Like the Lok Sabha, the Rajya Sabha, the states, the Vidhana Sabha, Vidhana Parishad, we study in civics. Anything which happened before 1947 is we treat it as history, the Gandhian era and all these things. But my dad did his 10th in the 60s. That time also 47 was history. I did in the 80s, 47 is history. My son is doing now also 47 is history. So we have got a very rigid wall which has been built, and we study about the independence movement as part of history. Though we have come more than half a century after independence, but we don't look at it as history. So we look back at history and the freedom movement during the the last century, the 20th century. Now, it was characterized by animosity, and it was, I'm sorry to say this, but I suppose, from what little I have done, reading I have done, this hatred between the communities in India was fueled or was encouraged by the British just for them to stay in power, and we even today continue to follow that. Many things like the Khilafat movement, which you would have heard in the 1920s, many things like the Nehru report, these were all things where something terribly went wrong, and the demand for a separate Muslim state in the name of Pakistan, East Pakistan and West Pakistan, was not officially made even till the 1930s. It was not officially made even till the 1930s. But after that it became such a major issue. Okay, fine, even if you make a separate state, why should we share so much of a hatred and animosity between two of us? Because both our countries, we have got enough problems. We have got enough difficulties internally. Now, what is the point in spending so much on defense and all these things? If you see the latest budget, the defense expenditure has been increased. And USA, which has 100% literacy, spends more than 15% of its GDP on education. We spend less than 5%. Had we sort of earmarked all this defense expense by having a peaceful and unguarded border, there's no doubt that both our countries could have become top countries. And it can be a win-win situation. Just ponder about this. In fact, after the presentation, I have requested the organizers to distribute a small write-up, which I have called it as the Indian Revolution. You can have it with you. You can go through it, and then you can get back to me on email or something about your views and opinions about it. Now, coming back to India and the patriotism here. Do you have time? Yeah, fine. It's a countdown, is it? Okay. 7 more minutes. Coming back to India and the patriotism and all these things, I personally believe one of the greatest mistakes done immediately after independence was dividing the states on a linguistic basis. And today it's become a mockery because there's so much of mobility with this techno park and so many other things coming up in all the states. There's so much of mobility that language keeps the people as a dividing factor. In fact, it's very ridiculous. I'm from a school in Bangalore. Students take up 6 subjects for 625 marks in Karnataka State Board. Out of the 625 marks, 325 marks go for first, second and third languages. And only 300 marks go for the core subjects. Whereas in any other country, any other Western country, you have the people learning only one language. Okay, we appreciate our language and culture and our diversity and all these things. But instead of again being a richening or an enriching factor, that also is again acting as a divisive factor. That is something which I was pondering about. And then coming back to patriotism, where do you see the real display? I'm not being ridiculous, please don't mistake me. Where do you see the real display of Indian patriotism?
When you win a cricket match.
Sorry?
When you play a cricket match against Pakistan.
An India-Pakistan match, one-day match, the last over, when the other team has to get, let us say, 10 runs out of 6 balls. That time you see the real patriotism, where people hold flags and all these things and so much of cheering. But of course, it is done in the way of sports and games and all that, but again, why so much of animosity? That is where we see real patriotism, and I don't know, I'm getting an impression that our patriotism has always been based on hatred. It was originally hatred for the British. Now it is headed for Pakistan. In fact, Amritsar, where we went, in the town of Amritsar, there is something called Jallianwala Bagh. And outside Amritsar, there is this Wagah. Jallianwala Bagh, we don't feel so much hurt because it is a little older. Wagah, when we see, we feel so patriotic because our immediate enemy now is Pakistan. And we cheer and all these things. Now, can't our patriotism be based on something else? Are we really proud of our country? Are we really proud of our nation and all these things? What youngsters, if I can ask you, I mean, just to ponder about, I'm not again being ridiculous or anything. We love to use a shirt made out of Boston cotton. The moment the ad says Boston cotton, we go and pick it up. We love to eat a dish which we can't even pronounce, but they say they have used some Italian cheese in it, we go and pick it up. You find the local juice maker or you find Del Monte juice, we go and pick up Del Monte juice. We love to live in Spanish villas, whereas our Tharwad, Kerala houses were legends once upon a time. So we ourselves are not acknowledging our pride and all these things. I mean, I think it's just time for a rethink about our patriotism and all these things. Again, we are based on dogmas. We are based on dogmas and religions. We immediately identify some religion with something and all these things. Whereas if we can focus on the more constructive aspect, we'll be able to do much better. We'll be able to do much better. And I was telling you about this Wagah border, no? It's very, very funny and ridiculous. You know, both the countries, the flags go down at the same time. And you have BSF from India and its counterpart from Pakistan. Both these commanders come, they have a hostile salute to each other, hostile salute. And the higher they raise their legs, it is supposed to be greater. And happy to know that there are a lot of women BSF officers also who participate in this. But either side, you have got people cheering for this country, people cheering for that country, and you are very clearly told, you can say only three things. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram, Bharat Mata Ki Jai. You can't say anything criticizing the other country. So people cheer and people sing patriotic songs and dance and all these things. My question is, why is that? Because I have traveled all over Europe and I have driven through these countries, and we didn't even know that we were crossing one country and reaching and entering another one. These were the days before Euro. So the only thing what used to be there was an ATM. And so you are now leaving France and entering Germany. So if you want, you deposit your francs here and collect the German currency. And there used to be some nice bouquets. There used to be nice bouquets asking and welcoming you into that country. And that's all about it. And today, one of the longest unguarded borders is between USA and Canada. Why can't we share one like that? Make an attempt about it. This is basically what I had to share with you. So once it's done, I think the organizers will be giving you the handout before you leave for the day. Please go through it. And I would love your feedbacks. I would love your comments on this. And it was really a pleasure being with you and sharing my thoughts with you. Thank you so much.